Hello and welcome to another video. In this one I'll be covering the latest updates from the Ukraine war, and today we have an update from Belgorod as the Ukrainian forces started an attack here between the Sumy region and the Belgorod region, attacking the border here by the villages of Kosinka, Serche Pervoe, Gorapodol and Gaviron. According to Deep State Map, they expanded the gray zone to reach all the way up to Gorapodol here to the east and Gaviron. So this area right here. And as we can see on the map, the Ukrainians are holding about 1 to 2 villages. The exact area that they control is unclear, but they still have about 130 soldiers across the border, according to Ryber. So we have this threat by Armchair Warlord, and in this one we can see that there is a lot of interesting things he covers. Starting out, we see that the Ukrainian forces attacked with this marking right here, and this marking is, according to the Ukrainians, a Ukrainian-Russian separatist group called Free Russia, as well as Russian volunteers in the Ukrainian army. So before you say that this is a separate entity of the Ukrainian armed forces, the Free Russia movement has been integrated into the Ukrainian army. The weapons that they use, as well as the ones that they are fighting with and fighting under the command of, is the Ukrainian army, which means that they can't just remove their own responsibility from them, as they have both the equipment from the West, the Humvees and so on that they use to attack, and also everything they have is possible due to the Ukrainian army harboring them and allowing them to move freely. So with this, we see that there is essentially no indication that it is a separate entity from the Ukrainian army. And at the same time, they recently announced that they are declaring full war on Russia, like the Free Russia company. So moving on, we see here he posts 2 videos. I'll post them on the screen. First one is 2 Su-25s delivering airstrikes in the Belgorod region and attacking Ukrainian Russian forces on the Russian territory. And then there's an attack helicopter as well. The reason why we see the 2 planes and only 1 helicopter and so on is because the Air Force, the airplanes are way faster than the helicopters. The helicopters probably came in late, and since it is only a company size of Ukrainian soldiers, about 100 soldiers, few armored vehicles, they don't really need more than 1 helicopter. 2 airplanes is already overkill, but I guess it is easier and quicker for them to do that than to send in the proper army. But then we also see this video here of civilians filming a BMP-2 as well as other military vehicles with the marking of a triangle with a Z inside of it. And then after the first 6 hours, the Russian forces claimed they killed about 39 attackers, as well as taken some prisoners and forced the attackers outside of the border. So what exactly does this mean? This has a lot of factors to it. Let's quickly go through Amjad's point. He says that according to the BBC, according to the UK Ministry of Defense, Russia has 97% of its army committed to Ukraine, and the attrition rate is high. Their combat effectiveness is effectively depleted by 40%, and 2/3 of the tanks are destroyed or broken. Based on that logic, Russia has committed essentially the whole army to the war here to the south. They barely have anything in reserve, and they're completely out of options. If Ukraine decided to attack Russia, Russia wouldn't be able to defend itself. So this is of course an estimate. Even for the West, it is an estimate. So this could be a quote-unquote probing attack, testing the Russian defenses, seeing if that is actually true or not. This was reported in February. There has since been an article by a US military general who says that Russian army has actually increased since the invasion started, rather than decreased like the UK Ministry of Defense says. So we're getting 2 contradicting reports here from the West. One says Russian army is essentially gone. The other says Russian army is stronger than when it began. Which one are you obliged to believe in? We see that the Russian army has had the partial mobilization. They have continued building and developing their tanks, as well as the Air Force, training the Air Force specifically. Even the UK Minister of Defense says that Russia will build up a couple of squadrons with the Air Force, elite squadrons that are going to be working together in case of Ukraine using these F-16s. They want to be prepared for it. So there's a lot of these factors. If we look at them logically, we see that Russian army is clearly stronger today than it was at the start of the invasion. Not only that, if you compare the combat videos from the very start, they would get ambushed and they would essentially not know what to do. They would make a lot of mistakes. Today we see them fighting very effectively in comparison. They have better accuracy, they are better equipped, they have better organization, better cooperation. The only issue with the Russian forces is that they're still spread thinly. Most of the videos I see where the Russian forces lose in the battlefield, it's because they're clearly outnumbered. So for some reason, sometimes the Russian forces are outnumbered in comparison to the Ukrainian forces, which makes no sense because they have a lot of soldiers in reserve. Russian army has approximately, based on the latest numbers, 150,000 soldiers in reserve. If they have that much in reserve dedicated to this war, yet they still get outnumbered on the battlefield, it makes no sense unless they're planning something with these 150,000 soldiers. Anyways, looking at this situation, we see that the Russian forces rapidly responded with both the aircraft, helicopter, and ground forces. So it makes no sense for them to be lacking in forces if they were able to rapidly respond to this, which means that they have some forces in Belgorod, most likely also have some forces in Kursk, and so on, expecting this from the Ukrainians. It's not like it came as a surprise for the Russians. They'd been expecting this. It also happened in the very north of the country a couple of months back, where the same unit, the Free Russian Army, attacked some border villages here to the north in the Bryansk region. Now they're attacking the Belgorod region. Maybe next time they'll be attacking here somewhere in Belarus, maybe in Kursk, whichever is closest to them and with a border to Ukraine. But essentially, what can we learn from this? We can learn that the West is significantly undervaluing the Russian army's performance, as well as capabilities in Ukraine, as well as outside of Ukraine, while Ukraine is more cynical with the approach, but are testing with what they can call a separate entity of the army, despite it being integrated into the army. And that we can expect that neither side is actually ready for an offensive. Because if Ukraine was ready for an offensive, then they wouldn't need to do these sort of tiny propaganda operations where they essentially try to divert attention from Bakhmut falling. The capture of Bakhmut was very small headlines on the Western media. As soon as Zelensky denied it, they put that above it. And then as soon as this happened, it came in breaking news. It filled out the front page, all of these things, despite how the significance of the capture of Belgorod is much higher than whatever this is, especially since it's a company of 100 men attacking with a couple of armored vehicles and getting destroyed within the first 6 hours. Compared to that, the fall of Belgorod, it's a 9 months long battle. Some would argue 4 months or 5 months long battle. And it ended, and they just get no coverage. Anyways, that's going to be it for this update. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.